Living without expectation. Buddhist wisdom. There is a particular kind of pain that almost everyone knows but rarely talks about. It is the pain of waiting. Waiting for a message that doesn't come. Waiting for someone to finally see you. Waiting for life to become what you always believed it would be. You refresh your phone. You check again. Nothing. And somewhere in your chest, something tightens. Most of us assume the problem is outside, the person who let us down, the opportunity that slipped away, the world that refuses to cooperate with our plans. And so we try harder. We adjust our strategies. We find new people to trust, new goals to chase, new futures to believe in. And yet, the disappointment keeps returning. Different faces, different situations, but the same familiar sting. What if we have been looking in the wrong direction all along? Over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha looked at this question with absolute honesty. He didn't look for someone to blame. He looked inward, at the very structure of the mind, and he saw that the root of suffering lies in craving and clinging, the way we grasp at how things should be. Today, we might recognize one of its most common forms: expectation. This is not about becoming cold or giving up on life. It is about seeing clearly, seeing what expectation actually is, how it shapes your experience without you even noticing, and what becomes possible when you finally let it go. Let me ask you something. Think of the last time you felt truly disappointed. Not just mildly annoyed, but that deeper feeling. The one that sits heavy in your stomach, that makes you want to withdraw from the world for a while. Now ask yourself, what were you expecting? There was something, wasn't there? A picture in your mind, an idea of how things should go. Maybe you expected them to call. Maybe you expected the job to work out. Maybe you expected that after everything you've been through, life would finally start being fair. That picture, that quiet assumption about how reality should behave, is the seed of your suffering. Not the situation itself, the picture. The Buddha had a word for the way the mind holds on tightly. In the ancient Pali language, he called it upadana, clinging, grasping. It is the way the mind wraps itself around something and refuses to let go. And expectation, when you look closely, is one of its most common forms. Clinging to something that doesn't even exist yet. You are holding tightly to a future that lives only in your imagination. Think about that for a moment. The future hasn't arrived. It has no substance. And yet you have already decided what it should look like. You have already attached your peace to it. You have already set yourself up to feel betrayed when reality turns out to have its own plans. This is not a flaw in you. This is how most human minds work. We project ourselves forward constantly, imagining, planning, hoping. And there is nothing wrong with imagination or planning. The problem comes when we mistake our projections for promises, when we feel that life owes us the future we have pictured. In the Mahadukkhakhanda Sutta, the Buddha examined suffering with great care. He traced how craving, tanha, leads us to grasp, and how grasping leads us to suffer. We crave pleasure, so we expect experiences that feel good. We crave becoming, so we expect to achieve, to be recognized, to matter. We crave escape, so we expect our problems to disappear. And beneath all of this craving is a single, unexamined belief. I will be okay when this happens. I will be okay when they love me back. When I get the promotion. When my health improves. When my life finally looks the way it's supposed to. This belief is a trap. Not because those things are bad, but because you have made your peace conditional. You have handed your well-being to circumstances you cannot control. And circumstances, by their very nature, do not stay still. In his first teaching after his awakening, the Buddha spoke about this directly. In the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he said, "This is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving which leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. When we expect, we are caught in this craving without realizing it. We are saying to life, 'Give me what I want, or I will suffer.' And life, being what it is, rarely listens." There is another layer to this. The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent. This is not philosophy. This is observation. Look at anything closely enough, and you will see it changing. Your body is changing right now. Cells dying and being born, breath coming and going. Your thoughts are changing, arising and passing like weather. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person reading these words. So when you expect something from the future, you are expecting stability from a world that has none. You are expecting the river to stop flowing so you can step in the same water twice. The person you love will change. They are changing right now, in ways you cannot see. The job you want, the success you imagine, the peaceful life you picture, none of it will look the way you think. Not because life is cruel, because life is alive, and living things move. Expectation is, at its heart, a disagreement with impermanence. It is you saying, "I need things to stay fixed," and every time they move, as they always will, you feel the pain of that disagreement. When I talk about letting go of expectation, I notice that people often hear something I am not saying. So let me be clear about what this is not. Letting go of expectation does not mean letting go of direction. You can still want things. You can still work toward goals. You can still have dreams that matter to you. The Buddha himself had a goal, the end of suffering, the awakening of all beings. He pursued it with extraordinary dedication for years. That is not the behavior of someone without direction. The difference is this: a goal is a direction you move toward. Expectation is when you demand that you arrive on your timeline in exactly the way you imagined. Think of it like this. You want to build a meaningful career. That is a direction. You study, you work hard, you show up every day. That is effort. Now, you send your resume to your dream company. You imagine the interview, the offer, the moment you finally prove yourself. You start to feel like this is supposed to happen. You refresh your email 40 times a day, and every time the inbox is empty, something in you deflates. That deflation is not because of the silence. It is because of the expectation. You didn't just want the job. You needed reality to match the movie in your head. I know the difference can feel subtle. It is subtle. And it takes practice to sense where wanting ends and grasping begins. The clue is usually in the body. When you are simply moving towards something, there is energy, engagement, maybe even excitement. When you are grasping, there is tightness, in the chest, in the jaw, in the way you can't quite rest until you know how things will turn out. Think of it like rowing a boat across a river. The other shore is your goal. You row with strength and attention. If you spend the whole journey worrying, what if I don't make it? What if the current is too strong? Why is it taking so long? You exhaust yourself before you arrive. That worry is expectation. It doesn't help you row. It only drains your energy, Living without expectation means you row fully. You give yourself to the effort, and you don't let your mind get tangled up in the outcome. The shore will come when conditions are right. Your job is just to row. This stroke, this moment, this breath. The other misunderstanding is deeper, and it touches something many people fear. They worry that without expectation, they will become cold, distant, unable to feel. I understand this fear. If you have been hurt by disappointment over and over, there is a part of you that might think, maybe the answer is to stop caring, to build walls, to never want anything from anyone again. That is not freedom. That is numbness dressed up as wisdom. In the Buddha's teachings on letting go of clinging, he described something very different. The ability to care deeply, to love fully, to engage with life completely, without being controlled by the outcome. Here is something worth sitting with. Expectation often prevents real connection. When you expect someone to be a certain way, you stop seeing them as they are. You relate to your idea of who they should be, not to the living, breathing person in front of you. And when they don't match that idea, you feel disappointed, sometimes even betrayed. But they were never your idea. They were always just themselves, doing their best, changing and growing in ways you cannot predict. Letting go of expectation doesn't make you cold. It clears the fog. It lets you actually see what's in front of you. And reality, when you meet it without demands, is often more beautiful and surprising than anything you could have imagined. Theory is beautiful. Living is harder. You can understand everything I've said so far and still find yourself at 2 a.m. staring at your phone, wondering why they haven't texted back. Knowing that expectation is the problem doesn't make it disappear. You need something practical, something you can actually do when you're in the middle of it. Let me start with relationships, because that's where expectation cuts deepest. We love someone, and almost immediately, we begin to expect. We expect them to understand us, to remember the things that matter to us, to show up in the ways we need, to somehow know what we want without us having to say it. And when they don't, when they forget your birthday, or miss the pain you're in, or say the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong moment, something in you cries out, if they really loved me, they would know. I want you to sit with that sentence for a moment. If they really loved me, they would know. Is that true? Or is that the voice of expectation, asking another human being to read your mind and meet your needs exactly as you imagine them? In Buddhist teaching, there is a clear difference between tanha, craving, attachment, and metta, loving kindness, goodwill. When we look at how we love, we can see these two qualities at work. When love is mixed with tanha, it wants something. You love because they make you feel good, because they complete you, because having them in your life fills a hole you've been carrying. This kind of love is always conditional, even when we don't admit it. It says, I love you as long as you are what I need. When love is rooted in metta, it wants nothing. You love because you genuinely wish them well. You want them to be happy, to be free from suffering, to flourish, even if their flourishing takes them away from you. This kind of love doesn't keep score. It doesn't wait for reciprocation. It simply offers itself, freely, without conditions. I am not saying you should accept mistreatment. Boundaries are important. If someone consistently disrespects you, you have every right to step back. A boundary says, I need respect to stay in this relationship. That is healthy. An expectation says, you must behave exactly as I imagine. or I will be hurt. That is a trap. The difference might seem small, but it changes everything. Boundaries protect your well-being. Expectations bind your peace to someone else's behavior. Now let me speak to another situation. Maybe you've tried everything. You've worked on yourself, adjusted your expectations, practiced patience. And still the disappointment comes, wave after wave. You're tired. You're starting to wonder if something is fundamentally broken in you. First, I want you to know, the fact that you are still trying means something. Don't dismiss that. But let me offer a possibility. Maybe the exhaustion isn't because you haven't tried hard enough. Maybe it's because you've been trying to not feel disappointed, and that itself has become another expectation. When we experience pain, the natural instinct is to make it stop. So we try to fix ourselves. We read books, we practice techniques, we tell ourselves we should be further along by now. And underneath all of it is a quiet demand. I shouldn't feel this way. Something is wrong. I need to get past this. That demand is another expectation, and it creates another layer of suffering. Now you are not just disappointed. You are disappointed in yourself for being disappointed. The Buddha suggested something different. In the Satipatthana Sutta, he taught a practice of turning toward experience rather than away from it. When pain arises, you don't fight it. You don't analyze it. You simply recognize it. When experiencing a painful feeling, he knows, I experience a painful feeling. That's all. Just seeing. Try it sometime. When the sting comes, instead of immediately trying to fix it, or understand it, or escape it, just pause. Feel where it lives in your body. Name it quietly. There is disappointment. And then, gently, ask, what was I expecting? That question is not an accusation. It is an investigation. You are tracing the disappointment back to its source. And almost always, you will find an expectation you didn't even know you were carrying. Seeing it clearly doesn't make it vanish, but it does change your relationship to it. You are no longer drowning in disappointment. You are watching it, understanding it, meeting it with something that looks a little like compassion. If expectation is the problem, a natural question arises. Without it, what moves us? What gets us out of bed? Where does the energy for life come from? Most of us have been taught, without anyone saying it directly, that motivation comes from wanting. You want the grade, so you study. You want the promotion, so you work late. You want love, so you try to be worthy of it. The engine of action is lack, a gap between what you have and what you want, and you spend your life trying to close that gap. This works in a way, but it has a cost that we rarely count. When motivation comes from lack, you are always running. There is always another gap to close, another goal to reach, another future that will finally make you feel complete. Even when you get what you wanted, the satisfaction fades quickly. The wanting returns, now directed at something else. And you realize, no matter how much you accomplish, the sense of not enough follows you. The Buddha saw this clearly. He saw how craving leads to more craving, a cycle that turns endlessly, never arriving at lasting satisfaction. And he pointed to a different way. He spoke of sama vayama, right effort. This is effort that arises not from wanting to become something, but from seeing clearly what is wholesome and moving toward it naturally. You don't act to fill a hole. You act because the action itself is aligned with what matters. Right effort has 4 parts: preventing harmful states from arising, releasing harmful states that have arisen, developing wholesome states, and maintaining wholesome states that are present. Notice what's missing. There is no mention of reward, no promise of success. You act because the action is good, because it is true, because it is helpful, not because of what you will get. Imagine someone tending a garden. One gardener plants with a fixed image, specific vegetables, specific yields, specific timelines. Every day they worry. They measure progress against the picture in their head. When things don't match, they feel frustrated, even betrayed by the soil itself. Another gardener plants because planting is meaningful. They prepare the earth because earth needs preparing. They water because water is needed. They pull weeds because that helps life grow. The harvest will come when it comes, shaped by sun and rain and 1,000 factors beyond their control. Their job is simply to tend. Today, this plant, this handful of soil. Who is more at peace? When motivation comes from presence rather than lack, something shifts. You stop fighting against uncertainty. You become available for what is actually happening. And what is actually happening is usually more alive, more interesting, more workable than the movie in your head. This is not something that happens overnight. The habit of grasping runs deep. Tomorrow you will expect something, and reality will not match, and something in you will tighten. That is not failure. That is simply what it means to be human. The difference is that now you can see it, and seeing over time changes everything. So what remains when expectation falls away? Not emptiness, not indifference. What remains is presence, the texture of this breath, the warmth of this light, the face of the person in front of you, seen clearly for perhaps the first time. Life stops being a problem to solve or a goal to reach. It becomes something simpler, an experience to meet, fully, without conditions. What remains is peace. Not the peace of getting what you want, but the peace of no longer needing things to be other than they are. And that peace, unlike everything else, does not depend on conditions. It is available to you in every moment, if you are willing to stop reaching and simply be where you are. What you've been searching for has been here all along, waiting, quietly, for you to stop and notice and rest.